Welcome back to Play the Game HQ. I'm Daniel, and in this video, we're going to teach you how to play Blast Track, published by Foxmind, who helped sponsor this video. In Blast Track, players will be competing to build the best, most exciting roller coaster in the amusement park. As you expand your track, you'll score points for different elements like tunnels and loops, and the player with the highest score at the end of the game wins. But you have to be careful because even the biggest thrill seekers have their limits, and having too much of a good thing will start to lose you points instead of gain them. To set up the game, each player takes a player board, then takes the matching color cubes and cart meeple. Put a cube on the first space of each track of your player board, then give each player 4 red arrows and a +3 token and set those beside your board to use later. Put the starting tile in the middle of the table with each player's cart on the starting point that matches their color. If you're playing with less than 5 players, it's recommended that you pick player colors that are next to each other on the starting tile. This is going to make more opportunities to interact with the tiles that other players are placing, whereas if you're going in opposite directions, you'll likely just be building out in your own space and not interacting much with the other tracks being added to the board. Next, take all the tiles with the yellow backs, including the big loop tiles, and put them face up next to the play area. Then shuffle the purple tiles and put them into 3 face down piles that are roughly the same height. If you're playing with less than 5 players, remove all of the tiles with the plus sign on the back. For this video, I'm set up for a 2-player game, but I'm only going to keep up with the score for the orange player. Give each player 1 tile, then flip over the top tile of each pile to create the market, and you're ready to get started. The player who screams the loudest on a roller coaster goes first, and then play continues clockwise around the table. During the game, players will be building their track, beginning at their starting point and adding on from there. The game ends when all of the tiles have been played and the player with the highest score wins. On your turn, take 1 tile from the market, adding it to the tile you already have in your hand, and then choose one of those tiles to play. Each tile has multiple tracks on it, and you get to choose which one to use. Add the tile to the end of your track, and then move your cart to the end of that tile, scoring any elements you go through along the way, and then it's the next player's turn. There's a couple of key rules when you're placing tiles. As the game goes on, there will be more and more tiles added, and eventually you're probably going to connect your track to some tiles that another player placed, which is great, but you're never allowed to place a track in a way that would cause a collision between 2 carts, and you can never place something that would cause a cart to go back to the starting tile. Beyond that, your goal is to make the most exciting roller coaster that you can, and you'll do that by adding different elements like tunnels and loops. After you add a tile, you're going to move your cart to the end of your track, and as you move along your track, move the cubes up your track each time you go through their corresponding element. And that applies to any element, whether it's one that you added yourself or other tiles that you connected to. So because I went through a slope tile, I'll move my slope score up 1. And while the goal is to make an exciting ride, there is a limit to what riders will enjoy. Once your cube moves up to 5 on any of the tracks, you'll add the red arrow into the space next to the track. After that, anytime you go through that element, your score goes down instead of up. It's all about balance, making the ride exciting, but not overwhelming. Now let's talk about all of the exciting things you can add to your roller coaster. When you add a slope tile with the red speed arrows, you get to place a bonus tile. Take a face down tile from one of the 3 face down stacks and add it to the end of your track, then move your cart to the end of the track and move your slope up by 1. I already scored that tile when I placed it, so this is going to stay at 1 point. If you draw a second slope tile for your bonus tile, you'll still place it, but you won't score for going through that second slope. If you draw a tile that you can't place, put it on the bottom of one of the decks. When you play a tile with the loop symbol, discard that tile and choose one of the face-up loop tiles that you set aside at the beginning of the game and add it to your track using the same rules as a normal tile. Then move your cart to the end of the track and increase your loop score by 1. And remember, anytime you go through an element, even if it's not one you just placed, you still score for it. So because I went through this slope tile here, I'm also going to increase my slope score by 1 more. Tunnels have 2 parts, the green entrance tile and the red exit tile. When you place an entrance tile, find the matching exit tile with the same icon in the center from the tiles you set aside at the beginning of the game. Put the green entrance tile at the end of your track and put the exit tile anywhere else on the board following the standard placement rules. Exit tiles can only touch one other tile when they're placed, and they can never touch another exit tile. Then move your cart through the tunnel, making sure you go through the same entrance and exit number. Move your cart to the end of its track, then score 1 point on the tunnel track, plus 1 point for any other elements that you may have gone through in that same movement. The 4th track on your scoreboard is for helping other players. If you ever add a tile that also moves another player's cart, increase your help score by 1. And the last scoring track is your connection score. If you ever place a tile that connects at least 3 tiles together, including the one you just placed, you increase your connection score by 1. So when I place this tile here, that's going to connect me through 1, 2, 3 tiles and increase my connection score by 1. I also went down another slope, so that's 1 more on my slope score, and I caused the pink player to move, so that's 1 more on my helping score. If you connect to a tunnel, the entrance and exit tile only count as one tile, and you can make a maximum of 5 connections in a game, and you don't have to place a red arrow at the end of the track when you max it out. This space is a bonus for the player with the longest track at the end of the game. And when you're connecting to other tiles, it's important to note that tunnels don't work backwards. You can never enter through the red exit tile. You always have to enter a tunnel through the green entrance tile and exit through the red exit tile. If you ever get stuck and can't place a tile, you'll have to use a construction tile. These are yellow back tiles that look like tunnels, but they show construction in the middle, and the entrances are yellow instead of green. When you have to use a construction tile, place it using the same rule as a tunnel tile, and then lose 1 point from a score track of your choice. And construction tiles don't score for tunnels or connections even when you connect to them later in the game. Now let's look at something you don't want to do, which is getting those red arrows onto your scoreboard. I'm going to make a really bad decision and place this tile right here, which is going to score me a lot of points, but it's also going to cost me. So I place this tile and I move through this slope, which is going to move my slope track up by 1. So now my slope track is at 5, so I add this red arrow to the end. I move through this loop, which gets me 1 point on my loop track, and I connected 3 or more tiles together, which is going to move me up 1 on my connection track. But I am now going to move through 1, 2, 3 more slopes, and that's going to move me down 1, 2, 3 points on my slope score. When the draw piles are empty, players will finish the game using the tile in their hand, and the game ends once everyone has played their last tile. When that happens, move your cart back to the starting tile and then go through your entire track and count the tiles to see who has the longest track, with each tunnel entrance and exit only counting as one tile. And you do count construction tiles when you're calculating the length of your track, but just like tunnels, the entrance and exit only count as one tile. So my roller coaster goes through 43 tiles, and the player with the longest track adds the 3-point bonus to their scoreboard. Then players add up their final scores, scoring for the position of each cube on their board, plus 3 points for the player with the longest track, and the player with the highest score at the end of the game wins. If there's a tie, the player with the longest ride wins, and if there's still a tie, the player with the most loops wins. If you're playing with younger players, you can make the game easier by letting them ignore the red arrow symbol, or you can simply play to see who can make the longest track. And that's Blast Track. If you have any questions at all, leave us a comment below and we'll answer as quick as we can. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.